Hello, it's me again. It's BK's van again. It's another episode showing you what I've been up to over the last week. I've had Lee in again this week doing the electrics, and that's nearly all wrapped up, so we're pretty close to firing the engine up. We have fired the gauges up this week. So we'll get straight into what we've been up to, but please stay tuned all the way through the video because firing up those gauges is well worth the watch. Right, I've drawn a fascia for the sort of heater control knobs and a couple of other bits, a button for the aircon, that sort of thing. But what I'm going to do is cut just the fascia panel out, not the return edges that I'll need to fold, weld, mount, all that side of things, because I want to make sure that the little D shapes for the shafts to go through to stop the switch itself rotating when you turn the dial are a perfect fit. And it may take a couple of goes just to get the kerf width, basically the sizing of that correct on the plasma cutter. So I'll cut the fascia, that way we've got less material wastage, and we'll see how that goes. Well, that came out pretty good. I had to file a little bit out of each hole, but not much, which is the ideal really with the plasma cutter, just to make it a perfect fit. And I'm happy with how all of those sit in there. This will just be a little push-pull control knob for one of the heater flaps. I'm just waiting on that cable. So I am going to modify the angle here, just take 1 degree out of that, and then I can pretty confidently then cut the rest of it. And it's just going to have return edges on the bottom and this side to hide all the switch gear behind. And then on the top here, I'm going to come forward, and on this side, I'm going to come forward so I can fix into the stereo housing to attach that. So let's cut the full version. Well, there we go. There's the full version. So the test on the faceplate was worthwhile. It meant I was happy to proceed with the settings that I had in place. And then I added these extra bits. And it's going to go in up here. Basically, the next job is drilling for fixings. Right, cracking on with wiring. Lee's back in today doing that. So I've mounted the fuse boxes and the big old one, and he's running through more cables, more cables, more cables, more cables. I've got the wiper linkage in because I need to get a heater control cable, this type of control cable, through to the heater valve to feed the hot water or close off the hot water to the combined heat and AC unit. AC lines fittings are on the way. So my next job is to sort out this crappy servo pipe. So this is a vacuum feed from the engine to the servo with a non-return valve in the end. So I'm going to remove this non-return valve, use a short section of flexi, and then replace this horrible plastic bit with some more hardline. It's hardline week, not just for Bernard, but for us as well. So I need 2 meters of this 1/2 inch aluminium fuel tube. Carefully uncoil it, chop off what I need, and then we can bend it. Thinking about it, I'm not sure if my bender goes up to 1/2. It might not. So I've straightened out my 1/2 inch aluminium fuel line, but then I just realised that my little brake bending tool doesn't go up that big, it only goes to 3/8. But luckily, Because we're a fully equipped workshop, I had this tucked away gathering dust. I am just going to run a test bend on this because the die says it's 12 mil or 1/2 inch. So that shows you how inaccurate it is. Although to be fair, it does fit in that part of the die, just not that bit. So it's a little bit more crude. So we'll just test it out first. Also give us an idea of what the radius is going to be like. So far seems all right. It's not very good at staying at the beginning because I didn't want to use these little clamps which go around the tube, but what I found even on stronger stuff steel, it digs in quite a lot. So given that this is thin wall aluminium, I've left that off to try and protect the material a bit, really, more than anything. Let's wind that in. She's in there. Oh, that's pretty good actually. I thought I was going to dig into the tube a lot. It's a little bit over 90, but like I say, it was just by eye. Yeah, nice. So I'm running the fuel lines now from the fuel tanks up to the fuel pump at the front. And normally you would have a steel fuel line or copper or something like that, a metal line running the length of the car. And often that's to deal with fuel temperatures to make sure that the fuel arrives nice and cold. Now on newer stuff, it would have a fuel cooler in the system as well. I don't believe the BMW did, but in any event, that's why I'm going to run aluminium line for the majority of the length and then just use rubber sections at the ends to go from this to the pump and likewise to the filter. I'm going to use compression fittings on the end. So the first thing to do is straighten this out and then we can work out where it's running down the chassis. Here we go, it's flaring time, back on the old turret flaring tool. This time with the larger 3/8 aluminium fuel line. Now, not many places will have a flaring tool for this, but we got one. And the reason not many places will have it is because they don't do this sort of thing very often. And neither do we really. It's, you know, once or twice every few projects. But it's important to have what you need when you need it. And so we've got the all-important 37-degree flare for the AN fittings. All right, let's get this in here. Obviously, I've remembered to put the components for the flare in first. On first, rather. Otherwise, we'd be cutting the end off and going again. Just like that. These are so neat. I love the way these look. These are some really nice fittings from Torx UK. So that now is our fuel line. Both ends done. It's only a small length, but you'd be surprised at how much heat will draw out the fuel going through the aluminium. This has been an absolute nightmare trying to work out how to take the BMW air conditioning fittings to the aftermarket standalone kit that we're using on Bernard's van. And the problem is that all the BMW stuff is non-standard aftermarket sizes, so nominally -6, -8 or -10. So all the fittings for the aftermarket stuff is -6, -8, -10. The hoses are a standardized size with a standard ID and OD, and the fittings are a standard size. However, everything that comes off the BMW is a size all unto itself. So these figure of 8 male insert O-ring fittings, whatever you want to call those don't match up with the -10, 8 or 6. So it's been a bit of a nightmare, and no one seemed to make adapter fittings because it's not an LS. Now, I found a solution. T7 Design in Exeter sell these bulkhead fittings, and they have a -6 and a -10, and those nominally correlate to what I'm using on the BMW, or what I need to adapt from on the BMW. And what that means is they've got a nice raw aluminium machined part that has the female for a male insert O-ring -6 and -10, and then a thread on the outside. So I can use these aftermarket standard fittings on those. Do you know where I'm going with this? Yeah, I've got to cut these up. I've got to machine them down to the right size to then weld them to the bosses that go onto the radiator and then down to the AC compressor. Joy. So it's not a bolt-on solution by a long stretch, but it does mean hopefully I can weld something onto these fittings and then go straight to aftermarket. And from there on, it should be straightforward. So I've been putting the heat on that because I can see where the tube was originally inserted into this aluminium figure of 8 shape, because clearly this tube is not machined at the same time as that boss, so that will have been added in later, and I was anticipating that it was maybe soldered in, something like that, and obviously I don't want the solder contaminating the TIG weld. But equally, I don't want to go digging that out and making more of a mess of the fitting if it's maybe friction welded in there. That's a possibility that could have been spun on and that would have then welded it together. There doesn't appear to be any separation, no pooling of any solder when I've got that hot. So I think I'm going to have to just keep that as a flat filed surface, machine down my -6 male insert O-ring fitting and just see how I get on welding that. And there we go. So I've machined these down. They were the bulkhead adapters. Basically now I've got the male insert O-ring fitting receiver and an external thread to suit. So they will get welded like so, making my own adapter fittings. I hope this works. Final step in the process, a little bath in some acetone, just because you've got obviously the second-hand parts there that have had aircon gas going through them, which has got oil in it to lubricate the system. So I definitely want that cleaned out. And then obviously the new parts could have been machined with cutting fluid. So again, want to strip all of that off. So a little bit of a soak in some acetone, clean them all off, weld them together, and then hopefully I can finally get some air conditioning fittings on and seal that system up. There's a strong mining heritage in Cornwall, as you can see by Lee's headgear. He came out the womb with that bad boy on his head. Yeah. See, look, Milwaukee, 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 Milwaukee. Yeah, boy's got taste. Right, this is where I'm proposing to put the GPS aerial for the speedo, because it needs to be on the outside of the vehicle. This is right at the back, and so that'll be behind the number plate light. That'll be a perfect place to put it, because there is also, if I can get the camera up here, there's a grommet already in place for the wiring for the light to go through. So we can run the wiring down and through there, in through the vehicle, down and across to the dash cluster. Now, the only problem is whether it was in the original metal or whether it was when we repaired all up round here, because we've had to replace the whole inner of the roof. There's no hole going down this channel like the other side. So the other side, there's a nice channel there. There's a hole from the roof where all the factory wiring went up and through to the rear lights, etc. So we've managed to run loads in there, but this side, there's no hole. But I have a solution. I'm going to make a hole up in there. with this. Highly engineered, precise tool. No run out on that, as you can see. See how we go. If it doesn't drill a hole, it'll hopefully beat one through. Oh, look at that. Straight through. That's the best tool I think I've ever used. Right, moment of truth. We have got the battery in. It is connected. Is it connected, Lee?
It is indeed.
It's connected. Oh, Christ. Yeah, so we're basically going to do a first fire up of a few different things. Oh, look, we've got the telltales on the dash. Yep, so we've got the hazards. Are they working? Yes. Yep.
So we know that relay's right.
Front four are all good. Can see the back two flashing from here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So far, so good. Anyone would think you're a professional, Lee.
Done it a couple of times.
Professional hot wirer. Whoa! Fuel open. Okay, yeah, we haven't got the fuel tank connected yet. Oh, beep, beep. Dude, that feels like a bit of a milestone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Actually got some lights on the dash.
So we should
What's
now.
that?
Probably because of the fuel.
Yeah.
Left indicator.
Yep. Right. And they're flashing as well.
Cool. So we know that that relay's correct that he sent.
Yep. Coping with the LEDs, okay. Yeah, we've got some lights going on.
That side.
Yeah.
Should be. So we're good at the back.
Yeah, we've got some bright boys on at the front. Yep. Halos.
So that needs to be changed. That's actually marked wrong.
Is that the wrong way
On
around,
that
is
switch,
it?
yeah. Because it should be halos and the lights.
It should be halos, what, sorry?
Should be halos and then the headlights.
Right.
So that switch is actually marked wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's brighter. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Perfect.
Nice. I'm going to record this because this is a pivotal moment.
Yeah, man.
Listening to this banging sound system. You know what I'm more intrigued about though?
What's that?
What music you're going to select.
Yeah.
Given that you're an audio meister, what is your banger of choice for setting up such an epic sound system? Aqua? Bit of Barbie Girl?
Believe it or not, George Michael, Faith album, Praying for Time, and I think it's called Hard Day or something. That's what I normally use, and Michael Jackson's.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Man in the Mirror and stuff like that.
Yeah. Such a shame he was such a weirdo.
Yeah.
Right, I've turned the lights off somewhat to enable us to get the full effect of these Dakota Digital RTX gauges, and I haven't fully set them up yet, although I have been working my way through a few of the different calibrations like the fuel sender, also the GPS and the speedo side of things, which is also the clock. But there is a demo mode, so I'm going to show you that because that highlights a lot of, here we go, demo mode, a lot of the capabilities and the customizations available. There we go, look at this. Oh, a tasteful little needle sweep. Now this will run through a whole load of the colors that you can change. You can change the dials themselves, the the backlighting on the dials. You can change the needle color. You can change the digital display coloring, the titles within that display coloring. It's amazing how many different things you can change on this. You can have different things displayed in the two different banks on these screens here. Obviously, we've got the traditional sort of style gauges at the bottom with the battery, temperature, fuel, and oil pressure. The senders for the oil pressure and the temperature come with the kit, so they're all in. And then the sender for the fuel, you've seen us set that up, so that's all done as well. Battery obviously reads voltage. The clock runs off the GPS speedo element, the control unit in there, so that's now set up and adjusted for daylight saving time. Yeah, they're so good. I think they're going to be a real highlight of this cab area. Perfect. Yeah, often it's overlooked, the dash area in a car. When people are building hot rods and custom cars, they spend loads of time on the outside, on the engine, the ride height, the wheels. But what you have to remember is you spend the majority of your time as the vehicle owner sitting behind this. So this is actually probably one of the most important features of a vehicle, and I think we've hit the nail on the head with these. These are absolutely awesome. Well, there we go. What a great point to have got to this week, getting those gauges fired up. That's really spurred me on for the next week of work, which hopefully will see us getting the engine running. So stay tuned, subscribe, like, all that stuff, and come back and see how we've got on next week.